My name is Andra and I want to show you how I did this super juicy and moist onion pie. I used 1 kilogram of onions. I really wanted the shells that I just peeled. You will see in a future video what I'm using them for. So I end up with a lot of onion and I decided to make this simple onion pie. So the first step would be to soften the onions in some oil. I added some salt also. I used pink Himalayan salt, which is not that salty, so if you use table salt, use a little bit less. The salt is very useful to get the moisture out and it will soften the onion quite quickly. And I cut the onions by hand, but you can definitely use a food processor. It will make your life easier. And I just mix it a little bit and then cover it until it gets really hot. You can see some of the bottom pieces were a little bit golden. Then I cover again and I lower the heat to medium. After a while, when the onion is softened, I add 1 teaspoon of black pepper, grounded, and 1 teaspoon of thyme. But you can use maybe oregano or whatever herbs you might like. Repeat the covering and the mixing until the onion is soft. Then leave to cool. For the dough, I used 500 grams bread flour, but you can use whatever flour you have at hand, and 20 grams of fresh yeast. I just crumbled the yeast and I used a little bit of my lukewarm water to mix it and to activate the yeast. Then you have to leave it 10 minutes until it bubbles. If it doesn't bubble, you should probably use another kind of yeast. So I just left it 10 minutes and afterwards I added 15 grams of salt on the outside of the flour and then the rest of the water little by little. You might need to add more or less water, so don't add it at once. Depends on the flour you are using. But it should be soft, but not too soft dough. And I mixed it a little bit in this bowl and it started getting a little bit difficult, so I then switched to the cutting board. It's easier if you use both of your hands. I would have done it too, but my left hand was all scratched from working in the garden yesterday. Knead the dough for about 10 minutes or until it gets smooth, but don't stress too much. Gluten development is not critical in this recipe. Cover it and let it rest for 1 hour or until it doubles in size. Here I tried to poke it and it was a little bit too sticky, so I spread it with some flour and just took half of the dough to spread it to the size of my baking tray. You don't have to flour the baking tray or oil it. Just use the residual flour from the dough, so nothing special. Try to make the rectangular more or less the same size of the tray, but if it's a little bit longer, you can cut the remaining dough, which I did. It's not in the video, it doesn't show, but I did cut a little bit of the dough. The other half you have to extend it also, then put the onion in. It looks green, but it was not that green, it's just a camera. Then roll the other half of the dough. And then I try to make some decoration with the remaining dough. I just made 2 braids. But you can go wild with your imagination. I also prepared a beaten egg for giving a little bit of shine on the surface. Here I'm poking the dough with a fork so that it doesn't bloat when we bake it. And then you just spread the egg. The oven, it's preheated to 200 degrees Celsius, and I would leave it in the oven until it gets golden like this. You can serve it warm, or you can wait for it to cool. You can eat it the next day. It's really delicious the next day also. And we usually cut it in big chunks and we eat it by hand. Just pick it with your hands, but you can use a fork and a knife, of course. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!